Hello and welcome to this week's video. It's gonna be an interesting one. Well, maybe and maybe not. I mean, this week was pretty chill. Nothing too crazy. I mean, I did Migaku every day like I always do. I started doing Genki. So basically, I want to say 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I ended up getting Genki 1. Now, I read the first chapter of Genki 1 and then it went into the drawer because I was in uni and I just really didn't study Japanese while I was in uni because I was trying to focus on that, and trying to focus on studying Japanese and trying to do coding was not very productive. So I should have really started doing it then in September when I restarted getting fully back into studying Japanese, but I didn't. So this week I decided, you know what? Let me pick it up. Let me have a look. So I skipped chapter 1. I quickly took down the points of chapter 2. And did I? No, I don't think I did take the points of chapter 2. I took the points, if I look at my little study sheet here. Oh no, I did take the points of chapter 2. Right. So I took the grammar points of chapter 2. Yes, I did. And then I moved on to chapter 3. And then I realized something. That trying to read Japanese with Romanji and trying to read Japanese with hiragana and katakana, I realized that it's so much easier when there's no Romanji. I then also have realized the fact that Japanese makes a lot more sense when there's kanji involved. Because I've studied a lot of words, like if I go look at Migaku, it's at 1,416 words, which I'm sure is a bit overestimated. But because I've studied a lot of those words, when I read hiragana, I get really confused. I'm like, what is that? Even for simple things like kyo wa, I understand it more if I see the kanji for it than if I see the hiragana for it, because I'm looking at it, I'm like, what does that mean? I can say it sounds familiar, but then I can't comprehend the idea that no, that's supposed to be kyo wa, today. So that was fun. So I'm on to chapter 4 now. I'm gonna try do a chapter a day. I think that's the aim. So I'm gonna try and knock out most of Genki 1 in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. I might take 2 days per chapter. I haven't decided yet, because I do the chapter and then I read the at the end of Genki. As you can see, there's a how do I call it? Reading section. So it's got all these readings and stuff. So I'm gonna try and read them. I've already read the ones from chapter 2, or chapter 3, I mean, and they were quite enjoyable. I could read it and understand it to an extent that I was comfortable reading it. So I think that's really the main, aim for the next couple of weeks, is to, read and get through Genki 1 and then purchase Genki 2. It's not the be all end all. I'm still doing the chat GPT way I do grammar, and I'm still trying to read. I've been reading Yotsuba, which I'm actually really enjoying. The highlight is going to be I got through all of chapter 2, and that chapter was really funny. So that was fun. But I read that, so pardon me. Now gonna try and get through chapter 3 and 4 maybe this week. I know if I sit down I could probably comfortably read a chapter a day off Yotsuba, but I'm not trying to push it. And I read a bit of Kuma Kuma, but I really need to set aside a routine. So I'm gonna write down a routine at some point, and I'm gonna stick to it and be nope, I want this amount of time for this. So my current idea is an hour of reading, an hour of reading Kuma Kuma, an hour of Genki, an hour of reading Yotsuba, and then obviously however long it takes to do my Migaku flashcards, and however long it takes to do the ChatGPT grammar, and really just set in stone a proper layout. My 30 days of studying Japanese, or 30 days of Japanese immersion, has kind of gone out the window because I keep splitting my days between immersing in Japanese content and just getting stuck watching like YouTube videos of like random documentaries and stuff. So that's not gonna work. So I've got to try rework that. So I might need to postpone the challenge for that and redo it again, maybe in March, but do it in a way where I'm gonna record every day, like a little short, and I'll upload the short every day, and then that way I can just put all those in one video when they're all done and just be like, here's the collection of them. But yeah, so also by the end of this month, I plan on having my 6-month update. I'm still working on trying to figure out how I want to have that done. Because I'm going to divide it up into a reading section, a speaking section, and just my thoughts on certain things I've used over the last 6 months and how I feel personally that my level of Japanese is. And as I talked about last week, I'm planning to do the N3 JLPT exam this year, so that will be in November, and because of that I'm going to start doing some practice exams for N5 and N4 so I can see where I stand in regards to them, because it's not set in stone. That's the thing, like I've said to myself, no, I want N3, so I'm going to work towards doing N3, but if I feel, before I book it, if I feel that I can't get N3, I'm probably going to do N4. But I'm not 100% sure, because I feel like shooting for the stars might work. Maybe I pass it, maybe I don't. But I think it might be better if I don't think I'm going to pass it to just sit the N4, so I at least pass one. But that would, I'll have to think about that over the next couple months. But I'm going to get some study books for that. I'm going to try to find some Anki decks that have specific words and stuff. But I mean, if I look on Migaku, and I go down and I can see, I have a plugin that I got from the Migaku Discord, and it says for the Joyo kanji, I have 660 out of the 2100, or 2136 to be precise, which, I mean, that's quite good if you ask me. I mean, it's not great because there's a lot more, but I do want to learn all of them eventually. But if I go to the JLPT section, I've done 96% of N5, 95% of N4, and then 60% of N3. So with that in mind, I really think that I should be able to do the N3. I just need to practice my grammar. I'm also going to start, there's a kanji app on iPad and iPhone, so I'm going to start doing that and writing a good amount each day, practicing just to try and, keep in mind the different kanji. I know it's not 100% ideal, it's better to learn it in context, but I mean, I think it's good as a backup, because I stopped writing kanji by hand on paper, because my idea of, let me write every kanji out in a kanji dictionary 26 times was a really good idea until I got about 8 or 9 pages in, and I was like, maybe not. So yeah, there's that. But I don't know, maybe I'll go back to it for, the fun of just writing kanji, because it's quite enjoyable to write kanji when you get used to it. So there's that. And I want to be able to comfortably write kanji, not to the extent where I could write a book or something, or but I could write a letter or a postcard or something like that comfortably, without thinking too much about it. Much like I could sit down and write a letter in English and be quite fine doing that. I know it's not a massive part. Writing, from everything I know, it's not that big in regards to you need it. But I feel like with my aim being I want to move to Japan and live there for a substantial amount of time, that it might help just a bit to be able to comfortably write Japanese to an extent. It's also just enjoyable. I mean, I feel like people get really concerned, I feel, when thinking about language learning, and at the end of the day, you don't want to get too overwhelmed. Like, you want to enjoy the experience of learning. Like, the funnest thing for me is when I watch an anime, like Sword Art Online, right? And yeah, I watched it in English, but it was years ago. And I've decided to watch it again, just all in Japanese with Japanese subs. And I'll be there and I'm like, oh my god, I know what they're on about. I understand what's happening. And it's a really, like, you know, it's a really fun experience. Like, I don't know, it's like, maybe that's enjoyable. That's a better word. It's a very enjoyable experience to, like, you know, see, like, oh my god, even like reading, like when I read Yotsuba and I read something, I'm like, oh my god, I understand what's going on. It's a really, like, you know, enjoyable experience. It's like, oh, all this hard work I've put in, you know, it's you know, jumped. Like, it's made my ability jump. I've gone up a level. Now, yes, those levels are like, you know, if we're talking in you know, how would I put it? If we want to talk in steps, the little steps I'm making are like 1 millimeter every so often. But eventually, all those millimeters add up to a centimeter, then an inch, then a meter, then a foot. I've run out of measurements, but that's, you know, that's the idea. So, you know, if you're ever struggling with it, just remember that, like, every little thing you do compounds onto each other, and eventually you get to a point where, you know, stuff gets easier. And you're gonna have days where, like, everything is just like, nope, I don't understand this, I don't understand this, I don't know what's going on. And that's fine. Just take a breath and just, you know, leave it for the day. Like, if you've done a small bit, it's great. If you haven't, you know, it's not ideal, but, like, there's no point pushing yourself on a day that you don't feel up to it, because if you do that, you'll eventually start to hate it. Whereas, you know, maybe sit down for 5 minutes, take a breath. Like, even something as simple as just watching an anime with English subs, or watching a TV show with English subs. Like, you know, it's just that fact of, like, have something as an input. Like, even music. I know music isn't ideal for learning, but, you know, just listen to a song. But yeah, I mean, that's it. Language learning is literally like going for a walk. Let's use it as a walking as an analogy, right? Well, I mean, it doesn't really work because everyone walks everywhere, basically. But the point being is, like, you take a step forward, and it's like, okay, I took one step, and then you take another step, and what you realize is these two steps work together. So every steps you take helps you go. So, like, you want to walk somewhere, like, okay, cool. Step 1, step 2. Okay, and now I take another step. Oh, and that because I've taken step 2, step 3 now goes further than step 2. And it just keeps going and going and going. And eventually, you've walked a very long time, or in the sense of Japanese, you've got to a point where you can comfortably do something. You know, you can watch anime, you can watch a show on Netflix, you can read a comic, you could read a light novel, you could read a novel, you could conversate, you could write. Like, and that's the thing, it's like, we have all these aspects in language, and sure, you're gonna have ones that are better, but at the end of the day, if you focus on one, like, if all you want to do is read manga, then just read manga. Pick up really kids mangas and just start reading them, and eventually get more and more complicated ones. If you want to watch anime, then just watch anime. Start with kids animes and work yourself up. You know, work to a point where, like, you've gotten watching, like, you know, something simple like Doraemon, or even like Pokemon, which I know are still quite complicated. Maybe start with SpongeBob, right? But the point being is, like, you start with something really simple, and eventually you're able to sit down and watch something like Attack on Titan or Death Note, right? It's that thing. But then if you want an overall experience, then, you know, do a bit of reading, do a bit of watching TV, do a bit of writing, you know, do a bit of speaking. And then you're not great at any one thing, but you build a good base for continuing to advance in learning. I mean, yeah, that's how I look at it. I know I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but that's how I look at language learning, specifically when it comes to Japanese. So, anyways, thank you for listening to my long I can't speak. Thank you for listening to my long tangent, and thank you for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And, you know, we've hit 10 subscribers, so I'm quite happy with that. I'd like to hit 11 would be nice. I mean, eventually I'd like to hit 100. I'd be happy with 100. But I'm actually quite happy that I have 10. Like that's I never thought that would happen. So, that's really nice. But yeah, please like, comment, and subscribe. Keep studying, and I will see you all next week.